I still remember the way the lobby smelled that morning. Stale lemons and carpet cleaner, the kind they use to hide 1,000 old footsteps. I stood there with my little overnight bag, the navy one my late husband, Paul, bought me on our 30th anniversary, waiting while the young girl behind the counter typed and typed, her brows pinched tight. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry," she finally whispered, cheeks softening. "Your reservation didn't go through. We're fully booked tonight." Her voice wasn't unkind, but the words, they landed like cold rain on already tired bones. I swallowed slowly, feeling that old familiar flutter in my chest. That embarrassing little panic older women try so hard to hide. "But sweetheart, I confirmed it twice," I said, my fingers curling around the handle of my bag. I wouldn't have left home otherwise." She bit her lip. "I know. The system glitched. I wish I could help." For a moment, I just stood there in the lobby, watching the automatic doors breathe open and shut, like the place itself was sighing for me. I had nowhere else to go. No sister's couch. No best friend's spare room. And I didn't want to bother my neighbor, Marla. Not at this hour. So I turned around, tightening my coat at the collar, whispering to myself, "It's just one night, Evelyn. You'll be fine." But the truth was, I didn't feel fine. Not at all. Outside, the wind caught my hair, these silver strands that never stay where I pin them anymore. And I walked toward the bus stop, praying the last ride hadn't left. The streetlights hummed above me, flickering like they were shivering too. And the whole way home, a small ache settled in my chest. I'd left the house earlier that day because Tyler needed space to show a client something. He didn't say what, didn't say why, just that it would be better if I wasn't there. A mother knows when she's being nudged aside, even if she pretends not to. The bus dropped me off at the corner. My house, the little 2-bedroom with the green shutters Paul painted himself, glowed softly from inside. I frowned. I always turned off the lights before leaving. My feet slowed on the walkway. Something felt wrong. Something inside the light, the shadows, the quiet wrongness of the night. I heard voices before I even touched the porch steps. A man's voice. Deep, unfamiliar. "So the backyard comes with the property line extending all the way to the fence? That's rare in this neighborhood." And then Tyler's voice, my son, smooth, polished, almost proud, the way he used to sound when he won a school debate. "Yep, it's a great deal. My mother won't put up a fight." My heart stopped. Not broke, not cracked, stopped. I stood on the porch, fingers trembling over the doorknob. When I pushed the door open, it creaked. That same old creak it's had since 1985. And 3 heads turned toward me. Tyler's eyes widened first, Bree's right after. She was perched like a nervous sparrow near the kitchen doorway, and the stranger, a tall man in a charcoal coat, just blinked in surprised politeness. I stepped inside, clutching my tote against my ribs. "Evening," I murmured, my voice smaller than I meant it to be. "I came home early." Tyler cleared his throat too loudly. "Mom, you weren't supposed to. I thought you were staying at the hotel tonight." "I was," I said softly. "They didn't have space." Bree gave a tight smile, her palms smoothing the hem of her sweater. "Oh, that's unfortunate." "Unfortunate. Not, are you okay?" Not, "You should have called." Just, unfortunate. I turned my eyes to the stranger. "And you are?" He stepped forward with a warm, practiced smile. "Grant Holloway." Tyler was showing me the property. The property, not my home, not the place where I raised my boy, not the kitchen where Paul taught Tyler to make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. Just property. My breath wavered. "Is that so?" Tyler's jaw worked nervously. "Mom, listen, it's not what you think." I let my coat slip from my shoulders and set it gently over the back of the chair, the same chair where Paul used to read the evening paper. I looked at my son for a long moment, searching his face for my boy. The freckles, the soft eyes, the kindness. All I saw was fear, and guilt, and something he was trying very hard to hide. "Have you ever come home?" I whispered, glancing at the viewers, only I felt in that moment, and felt like the walls you built with love were suddenly strangers to you. If you've known that ache, just write where you're watching from. It might help me feel less alone. Tyler shifted. "Mom, we were just talking. Nothing's final." Grant raised a hand politely. "If this is a family moment, I can step outside." "No," I said, surprising even myself with how steady my voice came out. "If someone's being shown my house, I suppose I should know what's being sold." Bree's cheeks flushed. "It's not like that, Evelyn." I lifted a hand. Quiet, gentle, but firm. "Then what is it like?" I asked. Tyler exhaled. "We were thinking, maybe it's time you moved into somewhere simpler. A retirement condo. Safer. Easier for you." My throat tightened. "And you plan to sell the house?" He didn't answer. His silence did. Sometimes silence hurts more than words. If you've ever felt that, comment, "True." My hand slipped along the dining table as I steadied myself. Something cold and papery brushed my fingertips. A folder. Tyler lunged forward, too late to hide it. I opened it. And there it was. Documents, listings, estimated sale values, signatures being prepared. My heart didn't break this time. It hardened. I looked up slowly, my breath trembling, but my voice quiet and clear. "You were selling my home while I was gone." Tyler's lips parted. "Mom." "No," I whispered. "Don't lie to me in my own doorway." Grant stepped back, eyes lowering, as if ashamed to witness this. And then, something slipped out of the folder. A smaller envelope. Not addressed to Tyler. Not to Bree. To me. My name written in Paul's handwriting. My knees nearly buckled. Tyler froze. Bree went pale. I picked it up with shaking fingers. My husband's handwriting staring back at me, like a voice returning from 22 years ago. Why do you have this?" I asked. Tyler swallowed hard, saying nothing. And just like that, I knew. This wasn't just about selling the house. There was something bigger, something he'd found, something he'd hidden. And you'll understand exactly why Paul's letter terrified my son enough to hide it. I sat at the kitchen table long after Grant excused himself and quietly slipped out the door. The house grew still again. That old, aching stillness that comes after truth cracks open a room. The envelope lay in front of me. Paul's handwriting. My name. A man gone 22 years. And yet suddenly closer than the sun sitting 10 feet away from me. Tyler hovered near the counter, rubbing the back of his neck the way he used to when he spilled milk as a child. "Mom, please," he whispered, "just let me explain." But before I opened that envelope, before I let Paul's ghost speak into this mess, a flood of memories washed over me. Memories that I hadn't touched in years because they still felt warm. And losing warmth hurts more than cold ever could. In 1989, Paul stood on a ladder outside, painting the shutters green, because I said green felt hopeful. He laughed, tapping the brush against my nose. Then this house will be the most hopeful one in the whole county. Tyler, all freckles and summer cuts, was sitting in the grass making clover crowns for his stuffed bear. "Daddy, make the house rainbow." Paul winked at me. "Your mother would never sleep again if I painted her house like a circus tent." We were simple, not rich, not perfect, but we were warm. Dinner back then meant loud stories and burnt rolls, and Tyler pretending he didn't know how to set the table just so we'd let him get away with doing it wrong. And every night, Paul kissed my forehead and whispered, "Home is safe because you're in it, Evie." Funny, isn't it? Years later, my own son tried to sell that same safety like it was a used lawnmower. I pressed my palm over the envelope, afraid to open it, but more afraid not to. Tyler sat down across from me, shoulders sinking, his voice small. "I wasn't hiding it. I just didn't know how to tell you." "That's not the truth," I said quietly. "Try again." He flinched. From the hallway, I heard soft footsteps. My granddaughter, Chloe, 10 years old, hair always in a lopsided braid, peeked her head around the doorway. "Nana, are you mad at Daddy?" Her voice, gentle and unsure, loosened something tight inside my chest. She didn't know the weight of what she'd walked into. She only saw faces, tones, tiny shifts in grown-up breathing. I opened my arms and she came to me instantly, curling against my side the way she did during thunderstorms. "No, sweetheart," I whispered into her hair. "I'm not mad at you." She looked up at me. "Daddy told me you were going to live somewhere else soon. Is that true?" I looked at Tyler. His face crumpled. Even he couldn't bear the innocence in her question. I smoothed Chloe's braid. "Nothing is decided." She nodded slowly, trusting me because children always trust the ones who feed them stories and cookies and soft safety. Then she slipped back down the hall, humming a tune she made up herself. When she was gone, I finally looked at my son. Really looked. He seemed smaller to me than he ever had. "Why, Tyler?" I asked. "When did I become inconvenient to you?" His eyes filled, but he blinked it away quickly, like tears were something he no longer had the right to show me. "Mom, it wasn't supposed to be like this. I thought selling the house would help. Bree and I have been drowning in bills and—" Ah. There it was, the quiet greed disguised as practicality, the desperation disguised as love. Later that afternoon, as I dusted the corners of the attic, I found my old photo album tucked inside Paul's cedar trunk. The blue leather cover was worn, the edges frayed, but the moment I opened it, our life spilled out like warm light. Birthdays, camping trips, the day we bought this house. One photo caught my eye. The three of us standing on the front porch, Paul's arm around me, Derek leaning into him with a gap-toothed smile. Behind them, a hand-painted sign Paul made himself. "Our forever home." I pressed the picture to my chest. "Paul, what would you say about all this?" I whispered. "Sometimes the ones we love most are the ones who break us. Comment true if you understand that pain." A soft knock snapped me out of the memory. It was Caleb Turner, the new neighbor. A polite, gentle man with kind eyes and a way of talking that made you feel seen. He looked up at me through the open attic door. "Mrs. Whitlock, you doing okay up there?" he asked softly. I forced a smile. "Just cleaning a little." He stepped inside, glancing around the attic with a puzzled frown. "Funny. Derek told me this attic was just for storage. Didn't expect to see you living here." My breath paused. "Derek told you that?" Caleb nodded slowly. "He said you moved in here to help clear the downstairs rooms for something he's planning." Something he's planning. Those words hung in the air like dust in sunlight, soft but impossible to ignore. I swallowed. "And what exactly did he say he was planning?" Caleb hesitated. He looked like a man trying to choose between truth and kindness. "Mrs. Whitlock, I'm not sure it's my place," he murmured, "but I heard a conversation yesterday when Derek was talking to that woman who comes by. Monica, I think." My heart tightened. Monica Graves, the realtor. Flashbacks rushed in. The paperwork Derek hid, the sudden urgency to reorganize. Sam's strange smiles, the attic move. Caleb continued softly. They were discussing the layout of the house, not remodeling, selling. My knees felt weak, selling the house. My house, the one Paul built dreams inside. I gripped the edge of the cedar trunk to steady myself. Are you sure?" Caleb nodded again, eyes filled with sympathy. "They mentioned a viewing, soon." My pulse echoed in my ears, loud as thunder. "But Derek didn't tell me anything." "I know," Caleb said. "That's why I'm telling you." Silence spread through the attic, heavy, suffocating, dizzying. Selling the house, pushing me upstairs, Monica's visits, Derek's secrecy, piece by piece. It fit. It all fit. But why? Why would my own son hide something this big? I looked down at the photograph still trembling in my hands. Our family smiling on the porch, never imagining a future like this. Linda's voice echoed in my memory. Eleanor, someday something's going to push you to speak. And when it does, don't stay silent. Maybe that day was coming, but before I could speak another word, Caleb glanced toward the stairs. You should know something else. Something I heard Derek say. Something about you needing to move out sooner than later. My breath caught. Sooner than later. The words burned like cold metal. What are they planning to do to my home? I whispered. Caleb hesitated. Mrs. Whitlock, I think you should see this. See what? He pulled a folded paper from his jacket, something he picked up on his porch by accident. A printed floor plan. My house. But with my bedroom erased, and a buyer's name already written in pencil. My hands shook as I stared at it. What has Derek done? I whispered. The living room felt different that evening. Too still, too polished, like a room waiting for truth to walk in and shatter it. The realtor, Monica Graves, stood near the window with her clipboard, pretending to review papers. Sam hovered in the hallway, arms crossed, and Derek, my son, paced by the fireplace with restless hands. I held the folded floor plan tightly in my shaking fingers. Caleb Turner, the neighbor who brought the truth to me, stood quietly at my side, offering the kind of strength I hadn't felt from my own family in a long time. No one spoke. Only the clock ticked. Slow, heavy, loud. Finally, Derek exhaled sharply. Mum, what's this all about? Why did you ask us all to come down here? I unfolded the paper and placed it gently on the coffee table. Why don't you tell me, Derek? He glanced down and froze. Colour drained from Sam's face. Monica stopped pretending to read. Derek swallowed hard. Where did you get that? It was left on Caleb's porch by mistake, I said softly. And it has a buyer's name on it, but I don't see my name anywhere. Not even a question, not even a conversation. Silence again, thicker this time. Sam spoke first, voice sharp. Eleanor, you're overreacting. You know you don't need that much space anymore. We're just trying to plan for... I raised my hand, stopping her with the calmest gesture I'd ever made. Please, don't tell me what I need. My voice trembled, but it didn't break. Derek stepped forward. Mum, the house is old. It needs repairs. The market is good now. You'd be better off in a smaller place. Somewhere. Manageable. Manageable, I whispered. You mean somewhere out of your way? He looked down. Have you ever spoken the truth and still been blamed? If you know that feeling, write your age in the comments so I know how many hearts understand mine. I took a steady breath and reached inside my shawl. Derek, I found something else today. From my pocket, I pulled an envelope, yellowed with age, sealed with tape Paul once used when we didn't have stamps. Derek frowned as I placed it beside the floor plan. What's that? He asked. Your father's will. Sam stiffened. Caleb glanced at me, surprised. Even he didn't know I had found it tucked inside one of Paul's old fishing books in the cedar trunk. I hadn't expected to find it myself. It was like Paul knew this moment would come. Derek's voice cracked just slightly. Mum, we handled all that years ago. No, I said quietly. You handled the paperwork the lawyer gave you, but Paul wrote something before that, something personal, something you never saw. I slid the letter out carefully and unfolded it. The handwriting, shaky but familiar, felt like a warm hand on mine. I read aloud, If anything ever happens to me, this house belongs to Eleanor for as long as she desires. No one, including our son, should pressure her to leave. This is her home, her heart, her story. A small gasp escaped from Monica. Sam covered her mouth. Derek's jaw clenched tight enough to tremble. I looked directly at my son. So, tell me, Derek, when exactly were you planning to let me know you were selling the home your father trusted me to keep? He ran his hands through his hair, pacing again. Mum, you don't understand. No, I interrupted gently. I understand more than you think. You moved me to the attic. You hid meetings with a realtor. You drew up floor plans without including me. But the part I don't understand. My voice caught. I set the letter down, palms trembling. Tyler, I whispered, did you know about this when you brought that man into my home? His eyes glistened, tears threatening but still held back by pride or shame. I wasn't sure. Yes, he choked. I found the letter 2 weeks ago. The room fell dead silent. Even the clock seemed to hold its breath. You knew? My voice cracked in the middle, the hurt slipping through despite all my strength. You knew this house was mine alone, and you still tried to sell it. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, face collapsing into his hands. Mom, I'm sorry, we're drowning. The bills, the mortgage, Chloe's school. You could have asked me. My voice barely rose above a whisper, but that whisper carried 22 years of holding our family together. You went behind my back, I continued. You treated me like a burden, and you hid your father's last words from me. Bree's voice cracked suddenly. We didn't mean to hurt you, Evelyn. I turned to her, calm but firm. But you did. The truth sat naked between us. Marla finally spoke, her tone cool but steady. Tyler, your mother has lived with dignity all her life. This, she gestured to the papers on the table, is cruelty, not desperation. Tyler's shoulders shook. For anyone watching, have you ever spoken your truth and still been blamed? If that pain feels familiar, write your age in the comments so I know the years you've carried it. I folded the letter carefully, my fingers brushing the places where Paul's pen had pressed harder, where emotion had lived. Then I reached for the second envelope on the table, the one the lawyer had mailed years ago, still sealed. I hadn't known what it was at the time. I had tucked it away, assuming it was a simple document. But now I knew better. I looked at Tyler. This, I said softly, was addressed to me, but I think you already know what's inside. His eyes widened, terrified. I broke the seal. Inside was a single-page document, thick paper, notarized, signed. My breath stilled. Marla leaned closer, reading with me. A collective gasp filled the room. Because it wasn't a will. It was something far more explosive. A binding trust created by Paul before he died, and written clearly at the top. If any family member attempts to coerce or force the sale of the property, their inheritance entirely transfers to... I froze. My lips parted. Tyler stared, his face turning pale as paper. Suddenly he stood up, stumbling back. Mom, wait, don't, please. But the truth was already unfolding. I read the final line aloud, the room spinning with shock. The guardian chosen by Evelyn Harper. Everyone turned toward me, toward my trembling hands, toward the name written in bold beneath it, the name of the person Paul trusted, more than his own son. And that name was not Tyler's. Low piano, silence like a held breath. The truth was out, but the consequences were only beginning. And very soon we'll reveal who Paul chose, and why that choice shatters what little trust we had left. The lawyer's conference room was so quiet, it felt like even the walls were listening. A long polished table stood between us, but it wasn't wide enough to hide the truth anymore. The overhead lights hummed, soft and cold, casting shadows on the documents spread before me. I sat straight, hands folded in my lap, heart beating slow but heavy. Across from me, Derek couldn't meet my eyes. Sam sat rigid beside him, twisting a tissue. Monica Graves sat further back, no clipboard this time, just guilt. And Caleb Turner stood near the door, steady, like he had been since the day he told me the truth. The lawyer, Mr. Halden, cleared his throat. Mrs. Whitlock, you asked for this meeting. You may begin. A silence thicker than grief filled the room. I placed Paul's old letter on the table. Everything starts with this. Derek shifted. Mom, Mr. Halden held up a hand. Let her speak. I unfolded the brittle paper. Paul's handwriting, soft, uneven, caught the light. My voice remained calm as I read. This home remains Eleanor's for as long as she chooses. No decision about it should be made without her consent. A single sentence, but it broke the entire room open. Gasps, a cough, a chair creaked, then silence. Sam spoke first, voice shaky. We didn't know about that letter. I turned my eyes to her. Did you try to know? Or were you too busy drawing floor plans without me? Her cheeks flushed crimson. Mr. Halden leaned forward. Mr. Whitlock, did you disclose this document when filing the estate papers? Derek swallowed. Hard. I didn't know it existed. That lie hung in the air like smoke. Caleb stepped forward. That's not what I heard. Every head turned. He took a small recording device from his coat pocket. This is from the day I told Eleanor about the mistaken delivery. I accidentally recorded part of your conversation, Derek. He clicked play. Derek's own voice filled the room. As long as she's still legally in the house, we can't finalize anything. I need her moved out first. The attic is temporary. Sam covered her face. Monica whispered, "Oh, God." My hands trembled, but my voice stayed soft. You moved me to the attic, to make the sale easier. The shame on Derek's face was unmistakable, a son caught in his own web. Some people only realize too late what real wealth is, Mr. Halden murmured, almost to himself. Derek finally broke. Mom, I was drowning financially. I thought if I sold the house— You mean my home? I whispered. The one your father built with his own hands. The one you promised to take care of. He closed his eyes, tears forming. I made mistakes, I know. Monica stepped forward, voice trembling. Mrs. Whitlock, you should also see this. She slid another document across the table. A revised contract Derek had signed. He asked me to list the house as vacant possession. That means no occupants. The room erupted with whispers. Caleb stiffened. You were going to evict her. Derek's voice cracked. I didn't. But the evidence spoke louder. Mr. Halden folded his hands. Mrs. Whitlock, based on the original letter from your late husband, the recorded audio, and the contract's wording, you have full legal protection. This house cannot be sold without your express consent. Furthermore, attempting to sell it under false claims is grounds for civil consequences. The doorbell camera, Mr. Doyle replied. You spoke openly to Mr. Holloway about the sale, about pushing your mother out. The audio is quite clear. Tyler's hands fell to his thighs, limp. Bree covered her mouth as the recording played. Tyler's voice echoing through the room. She won't fight. She's old. She'll just sign if I tell her it's for her own good. Gasps exploded in the hallway. Someone whispered, How could he say that about his mother? Another voice murmured, Some people only realize too late what real wealth is. Tyler buried his face in his hands. I closed my eyes, but tears still escaped, sliding down wrinkles that had weathered decades of love and loss. I didn't speak until the recording ended. Tyler, I whispered, wiping my cheek with shaking fingers. You talked about me like I was disposable. I'm sorry, he choked out. Mom, please. I made a mistake. I was desperate. Desperation doesn't excuse betrayal. Mr. Doyle placed one last document on the table. This is the legal consequence. Attempted coercion triggers the trust clause, meaning you forfeit all inheritances tied to the property. Tyler stared at him, stunned. All. Bree's breath hitched. Our everything. Your father meant for this house to protect your mother, Mr. Doyle said gently, not to rescue your poor decisions. The shame on their faces. It wasn't something I reveled in. It wasn't something I enjoyed. It simply broke me in a different way, like watching flowers you planted wilt from the roots. I turned slightly toward the invisible audience that so many storytellers carry in their hearts. If seeing truth win gives you hope, share this story so others know justice still exists. And if you believe that sometimes justice takes time, but always comes, comment true. When I looked back at Tyler, he couldn't meet my eyes. People in the hallway continued staring through the glass, whispering, shaking their heads, some with pity, some with disbelief. One older man muttered, "Stealing from your own mother. Shameful." A young woman whispered, "She deserved better." Bree grabbed Tyler's arm. "We need to go." He stood slowly, shoulders sagging under the weight of the consequences he had created with his own hands. "Mom." He paused, voice shaking. "I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say." I folded Paul's letter gently, pressing it to my heart. "You don't need to say anything," I murmured. "Just do better." He nodded once, a broken, regretful nod, and walked out of the office with Bree trailing behind him. Silence settled again, heavy, but this time, honest. I sank back into my chair, breathing deeply as Marla reached over and took my hand, her thumb brushing reassuring circles across my skin. "You're safe now," she whispered. Mr. Doyle smiled softly. "Your husband protected you, even from beyond the years." I exhaled, a long, slow breath that felt like it had been waiting inside me for decades. But as I stared at the empty doorway where my son had stood moments ago, a question rose quietly, painfully. Was victory worth the price of losing him? And deep in my chest, the ache answered. Justice was done, but peace still felt far away. And very soon will reveal what healing looks like. Months later, when the heart tries to mend what betrayal broke. 6 months passed, seasons changed, leaves turned and fell, and my home, felt different now. Quieter, calmer, safer. The attic was empty again, just a storage room as it always should have been. And I returned to my own bedroom, sunlight warming the curtains every morning like a small blessing. My days were simple. I watered the garden Paul planted decades ago, clipped basil for soups, and kept the front porch neat. But the biggest change wasn't outside, it was inside me. Strength grows quietly, the way winter turns into spring without asking permission. I still kept Paul's letter in my bedside drawer. Some nights I held it gently, not out of sadness anymore, but gratitude. It reminded me that even when the world shifts beneath your feet, the love you once shared can still hold you steady. Healing didn't come all at once. At first, I felt like a cracked teacup, still standing, but fragile. Derek hadn't visited since that day in the lawyer's office. A few apologetic messages came, each shorter than the last. I didn't block him, but I didn't reply either. Some wounds need silence to breathe. Sam sent a handwritten note once. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitlock. We went too far." I folded it and kept it between old family photos. Not because I forgave her, but because forgiveness sometimes starts with remembering that everyone carries their own brokenness. Caleb Turner became a quiet presence in my life. Not intrusive, not overly helpful, just steady. He checked on me every other week, brought me mail if a package looked heavy, and always asked, "You good today, Eleanor?" The way he said my name reminded me of a time when neighbors actually cared. It felt good, after so many years, to be seen without being judged. One warm afternoon, I sat on the porch with a cup of chamomile tea, watching butterflies land on the garden stones. I found myself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in months. Healing doesn't announce itself. It just appears in small moments like this. If you've ever healed after heartbreak, like this video, so I know I'm not alone. Sometimes I thought of Derek as a little boy, running through the yard with scraped knees, asking me to tie his shoelaces. It's strange how memories can feel heavier than reality, but they can comfort you too. Forgiveness was a slow visitor, but it came. Not forgiveness for what he did, but forgiveness for what I carried. Anger, shame, disappointment. Letting those go felt like setting an old, tired bird free. One morning, while sorting through Paul's dusty old toolbox, I found a photograph I had forgotten about. Derek was 6, sitting on Paul's shoulders, both laughing wildly at something out of frame. I held the photo to my chest. A tear escaped, but it wasn't a painful tear. It was a human one. Comment strong if you've ever had to stand alone and rebuild. True inheritance has nothing to do with houses, land, or papers. The real inheritance we leave is the way we love, the stories, the values, the quiet strength we pass through generations. Maybe one day my son will understand that. Maybe not. But I refuse to let his choices define the last chapters of my life. And let me ask you something. If you've ever healed after heartbreak, even slowly, like this video, so I know I'm not walking this road alone. Sometimes healing feels like standing on shaking legs until they finally steady. Comment, strong, if you've ever had to rebuild yourself from nothing but hope. I'm not alone anymore. Last spring, my granddaughter, the one who used to braid daisies into my hair, came to visit me. She brought muffins she'd baked herself, still warm, wrapped in a towel like a treasure. "Grandma," she said softly, "I'm sorry for everything you went through." Her voice cracked the same way my heart did years ago, but this time, the break was healing, not hurting. We sit in the garden together now, watering the plants, talking about little things, her school, my recipes, the birds that don't behave. Sometimes she stays for dinner, sometimes just for a cup of tea. But every visit is a reminder. Love has a way of finding the cracks and pouring itself in. A few neighbors check on me now and then. A kind young man mows my lawn once a month, even though I insist I could manage. I've built a life that doesn't depend on anyone's approval, a life stitched together with peace and small joys. The laughter that fills my house today isn't loud, but it's real. And now, as I sit by my window, watching the sun dip behind my lavender bushes, I realize something I never allowed myself to think before. Maybe losing my son wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the beginning of understanding my own worth. But I still ask myself sometimes, in the soft hours of the night, if life gave you a second chance to reclaim peace, would you take it?